We're going to take an intermission first, but before we do that, I want to call a gentleman to the stage who has an interesting story to tell you about this place, this building, which is more than 100 years old. Where's Ben Niehaus? Come on stage, Ben. Yay. Ben Niehaus! Now, Ben is a former alcohol, tobacco, and firearms special agent.
Those go together.
Exactly. And he's now a theater goer. And he wound up at the Hypnodrome and bought a ticket. He's back again. And his story behind how he wound up here might even be more interesting than mine. So, Ben, if you would share with them your frame of reference for this building.
Okay. What happened, I had been at this building the first time was back in 1973. And I was here on official business. And as a result of being here at that time, I didn't want to come back ever again. And I didn't come back, in fact, for, well, 35 years almost. And finally, about a couple weeks ago, I was driving down 10th Street, and I thought, well, I'm going to take a look at the building and see what it's like today. And so I drove by, and the first thing that catches my eye, you have a sign up there with a devil's head on it.
A devil with a tonsure and a monocle and fangs, and he's a skeleton. And he's a vampire. So yes. His name's Brandon.
And so anyway, and it has the Thrill Peddlers and Hypnodrome on the sign, and I wanted to see what that was. So I went home and I Googled it, looked it up on the internet, and it turns out it's a theater. And when I was here many years ago, it was anything but a theater. And I thought, well, okay, I want to go inside and see what it's like and what kind of a theater it is. And especially the Devil's Head really fascinated me because of what I'll say in a minute. But anyway, so I bought a ticket and I came here a couple weeks ago and I saw the show and I loved it. And Russell welcomed me at the door as he usually does, I guess. You greet everybody, and he was very friendly. And we got chatting, and I finally told him that I had been here.
Just joking. I didn't really pick my nose during half hour. Not once. Sorry.
Well, anyway, so I told him the story, and what happened is this. Back then, as a special agent of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, my job at that time was I was on the arson and explosives squad, and I investigated bombings and arsons. And the night in question, I had arrested some people, several people, on an unrelated case, and I was lodging them down at 850 Bryant Street, which is just right down the street, just a couple of blocks. And as I was leaving the jail down there, I got an emergency call to come to this address. So I drove over here, and I was here so quickly that I was, like a San Francisco police officer was the only other one here. He had just gotten here as well. And we didn't know what had happened. We had heard that there had been gunshots or explosions in here. And so we came in, and basically there had been a shootout in here. And it was pretty gory. And give the background of the shooting first. I mean, why this all happened, I guess.
Let me put this bloody rag out on the stage. Enhance it. I'm sorry, man.
When he called me today to ask me to do this, I was so surprised. I was slicing a bagel, and I actually sliced my hand. So I'll be suing you, I guess. At any rate, what had happened was that back in those days, you know, drugs, of course, they're still prevalent, but crank was a great big deal at that time. And there was a motorcycle gang out in the Central Valley by the name of Lucifer's Own. And they were also into Satanism and, you know, everything in those days, you know how it was. And they decided that there wasn't enough money to be made in the Central Valley, so they were going to come to San Francisco and take over the crank market. So they moved into the city and they started trying to set up an operation, and they weren't able to because the leading crank operation in the Bay Area was right here in this building. And yeah, a group of guys had been established. They were well established. They had the corner on the market, and they had the muscle to protect their market. And this new biker gang tried whatever they could to get in, and they couldn't. So finally, they decided in their infinite wisdom one night that if we can't beat them, we'll burn them out. So they got together, they had a little meeting, and they decided, okay, well, we'll just go burn the place down. And they decided to come over here one evening late at night because I guess they assumed nobody would be here, you know.
Not in the crank lab, late at night.
Yeah, I guess they figured they were bankers hours, but they didn't. Crankers hours. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, so they came over and they brought their containers of gasoline and accelerants and sentry devices to burn the place down. And of course,
because what you make crank with is not flammable enough.
Exactly. It would have been, yeah, there would have been quite a detonation had they done what they wanted to do, that's for sure. But anyway, so they came in, and lo and behold, they had the guns with them. Of course, they always did. And the guys that were running the operation here were here, and they had their guns, of course. And so a big shootout ensued. And by the time we got here, the shootout was over. I mean, it just happened like that. And when I came in, there were 3 dead bodies here on the floor, and there was a 4th guy who had been shot, and he was bleeding to death. Right? You know, I knew he was bleeding to death. Pardon?
Where was he?
But it looks, the whole thing's different now. But
There's no set. No risers. And definitely no shot box.
Well, anyway, no, I think he was actually, this wall wasn't there, there's a door back there. I think he was laying right about where you're standing, actually. And yeah, there was blood everywhere in here. But anyway, because he was dying, I needed to find out what happened, and I was going to take a dying declaration from him. And so before... Which, a dying declaration? Okay, a dying declaration...
They have the power of priests now, ATF agents. It's Homeland Security. No.
Okay, a dying declaration is a statement made by an individual who's in imminent danger of death, who's on their deathbed, and they're made aware of that fact. And they're told that any statement that they make will be regarded, presumed to be truthful, and can be introduced in court after their death without cross-examination. So it's a very important statement to get. So I was taking this guy's dying declaration down here, and he told me essentially what had happened. He told me who all was involved and everything. But because I told him he was dying, he got very agitated, obviously. And more agitated he got. Finally, he said, you know, we worship Satan, and he said, no one will ever have this building but us. He says, anyone that tries to take this building, he says, I'll cast a Satan.